What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Ango Show. We are live. It is October 8th, 2024. Hopefully, you guys are all having a marvelous day. Wow. Last night was Raw, so we're going to talk about that because Raw was a very interesting show. Some good, some bad, some things that are really, really good. But you guys probably saw the title of the stream. WWE Raw must go back to 3 hours, and I can't believe it. The day has come. I cannot believe it, but I missed 3 hour Raws, and we'll talk about it more in depth. So hopefully you guys are all doing good. Hopefully you guys are all enjoying your Tuesday. Tonight we also have NXT. Very, very big episode of NXT. Really insane stuff. We got Javon Evans versus Randy Orton. We just got a lot of stuff happening, and I'm super geeked about it, so we're going to talk about it. Plus, we got some news, and AEW stars leaving the company. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But I do want to talk about WWE Raw. Obviously, we will do so. If you guys want to support the channel, the best way to do that is by clicking like on the stream. Don't be slacking. Don't be slacking, y'all. Go ahead and click like on the stream. I would be greatly thankful for you guys to do that. Yesterday's Raw contained a World Heavyweight Championship match. That is something that we are going to talk about today. And plus, we do got to talk about some of these other matches that have happened. But I want to know that you guys are rocking with me. So if you guys are rocking with me, go ahead and click that like button. And then, of course, don't forget, we do have five different ways you can support the channel. We're only going to talk about two of them. One, you could become a member on the channel. If you want to become a member, you could be just like Todd Crow, Right Hand Cam, Laws. I see some more members in the chat. You could be just like them by becoming a member. You could join the Job Squad. It's super easy. You guys can also gift memberships as well. So if you gift memberships or you become a member, I will read any of your questions or comments. You're always given higher priority as well through the chat. And then if you want a guaranteed question answered or comment answered, we have the option for Super Chats. So the way Super Chats work, every Super Chat gets read on the stream. However, $5 or more will activate TTS. So TTS is going to allow Super Chats to kick me off, basically. It's just going to interrupt me while I'm talking. $5 or more. I just learned that some people did not know how to actually leave Super Chats, okay? And to leave a super chat, if you click the money sign near the chat, it's going to give you the option to click super chat or super stickers. You could do either or, but you just have to physically type in the number $5 or more, and that's going to activate TTS. So definitely, if you guys want to support the channel, that is the way to do so. I love reading your guys' super chats because we have been getting some really good ones, and of course, we reinvest into the growth of this channel. And again, don't forget, guys, call-ins will be happening sometime soon. So get excited about that if you guys like the idea of calling into the show. All right, cool. We got all that bullshit out of the way. Let's talk about WWE Raw. 2 hour Raw. It's different, man. It's different. And I kind of wanted to break this down. The reality is that 2 hour Raws are just different. WWE is going to have to figure this out. Triple H is going to have to figure this out. Listen, I'm going to tell you guys the way it is, right? And I think I have the perfect perspective. When you guys watch Triple H's version of WWE Raw, and then you guys watch Triple H's version of WWE Raw for 3 hours, then you watch 3 hours of Vince McMahon's WWE Raw, it was absolutely different. It's completely different. Triple H has figured out a way in 3 hours to maximize talent, TV time for talent, giving people and storylines just more time to breathe. That was a real big thing for WWE's success story for Triple H. I mean, more specifically, Triple H was able to figure out a way to make these 3 hour shows feel like a big deal. And I feel like for me personally, one of the big things that I've learned throughout time is that Triple H, I feel like he's done such a great job with Raw. Maybe that's where SmackDown has had some of its shortcomings, is that sometimes SmackDown feels a little bit rushed. So I was watching this 3 hour episode of Raw, and this 2 hour episode of Raw, and to me, it just did not feel well paced. And the thing is, the content wasn't bad. The storytelling wasn't bad, But I think within a 2-hour show, you can just greatly tell that WWE is in a situation where things aren't breathing as much. And that was one of my biggest complaints about WWE Raw last night. I felt like, perfect example, and we'll talk about it, but I feel like when you see Xavier Woods versus Jey Uso, it's a relatively short match. And then you got to remember, WWE they went from 3 hours to 2 hours, and I don't know if this was a USA Network thing, so maybe this is USA Network, I'm not sure, guys. But I felt like this whole thing of commercials after commercials after commercials, I felt like at least 40 to 50 minutes of the 2-hour show was just commercials. I don't know if there's a statistic to prove that. I don't know if somebody's already done them, but I felt like the commercials were absurd yesterday. So I don't know how WWE is going to fix that. But if WWE is going to have a 2-hour show and an hour and 40 minutes of it is strictly like commercials, yeah, let's go back to 3-hour Raws. I'm complaining about this now because I want WWE to either fix the way that they do 2-hour Raws, or if they can't fix the 2-hour Raws, then I want WWE to go back 3 hours, especially because the word going around town is that Netflix will not be 3-hour Raws. And if that's the case, if Netflix will not be 3-hour Raws, that could be a little detrimental to the product. So I want to see WWE figure this out now, whether it's a formatting thing, whatever it may be. I want to see them get it together. And that's what I was hoping for. Now, in terms of the content of Raw, let's kick things off. CM Punk comes out. He does this promo. Basically, he just comes out and says, like, he's a winner. He doesn't really feel like he's the winner, whatever it may be. He had a line in his promo that I liked, and I wrote it down. He goes, "There's a thin line between love and hate, and I've turned your hate into cash. I don't know why you keep doubting me, but keep doubting me." That was cool. I thought it was a good promo. Now, basically, here's the thing. Here's the thing that you guys need to know here. And this is where things get a little bit interesting. We are in a situation in WWE television where CM Punk is currently being taken off of TV. And this is obviously because they're going to Saudi Arabia in just a few weeks for WWE Crown Jewel. CM Punk, very outspoken about that. I've talked about this in great detail in today's news video, which is out. I've uploaded it about an hour ago. If you guys missed it, go ahead and watch it after
Malik
live
super chatted $11.17. Penta's contract: if Tony Khan adds 2 months to his contract, so he should be a free agent at the beginning of November because his contracts are already over between August and September.
Okay, cool. So we got a super chat from Seifa Malak for $11.18. Penta's contract: if Tony Khan adds 2 months to his contract, so he should be a free agent at the beginning of November because his contracts are already over between August and September. See, that's the thing. There's really no clarification on when his contract ends. There is a lot of uncertainty surrounding AEW stars' contract. So, Seifa, one of the things that I'm going to tell you here is this. Whatever happens, happens. Do I believe the Lucha Bros are headed to WWE? 1,000%. Do I think they should go to WWE? Yes, 1,000%. Do I think Tony Khan is preventing them from going to WWE? Yes. And I think Tony Khan will do that regardless. I don't know too much about Penta's contract. There was rumors that it was done 2 months ago. There was a rumor that it was done in September. Now there's a rumor that it's not done until November. I really don't know his situation. But if Tony Khan keeps adding time to people's contracts, I think that's just going to be a very big mistake. I think Tony Khan just needs to do the right thing, let his talent go out, let his talent do what they're supposed to do, which is work. And, if Tony Khan's going to add contract time and he's going to try to bury them on the way out, I just think that's a really bad way to handle it. I think that's really dumb. I always like to use the example of Jon Moxley leaving WWE. Like, everybody knew that Dean Ambrose was leaving WWE, and WWE gave him a send-off. WWE gave Adam Copeland a send-off. And I think everybody knew deep down those guys were going to AEW. You know what I mean? Burying people on the way out or adding contract time and not utilizing them or taking them off TV, I think it just sends a really bad message to other talent. Like, hey, if you don't want to be here, we're going to bury you. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think that would deter somebody from signing there. But I do want to see them in WWE. I do think they'll be in WWE. And I think they'll be great additions to WWE Raw when the time comes. We'll obviously pay attention. And when we get more updates on Penta and Rey Fenix, I will keep you guys updated. Seifa, thank you for the super chat. Right hand Cam dropped a $2 super chat. Raw wasn't bad, and it just felt a bit rushed. That's the thing, right? It's not that the content was bad. It was just the pacing. Because even when you get CM Punk, for example, this is a perfect example. When you get CM Punk doing the promo in the beginning of the show, CM Punk gets interrupted by Seth Rollins. He gets interrupted by Seth Rollins. It just seems like everything was just happening so fast. Just so fast. I don't know. Yes, it was rushed. And I'm just hoping that WWE understands that 3 hours was working. You know what I'm saying? It's not like the content was bad, but the way Triple H books his TV shows, it's not meant to be a 2-hour show. And that was the reason why I kept saying even SmackDown should go 3 hours. You know? They have to balance out the rosters, but SmackDown and Raw being 3 hours would be the right decision because of the way Triple H does everything. Slow burn, letting things breathe, more attention to detail. The 2-hour time frame with that loaded of a roster, it's very difficult. Thank you, gentlemen, for the super chats. We did get Jey Uso versus Xavier Woods. I personally thought this was good. Not a bad match, but it was a shorter match, which is, again, one of the things that was impacted by Raw being 2 hours. The Usos and the New Day can wrestle forever. They're always going to do great stuff. This match was relatively quick, but it was still pretty damn good. What was really excuse me. What was really interesting about this match, and this is the thing that I really want to talk about, which I really loved, is that you have a whole thing with Xavier Woods refusing to shake Jey Uso's hand. So again, they are continuing the story development of Xavier Woods becoming a bad guy. Okay? There's some friction between him and Kofi Kingston. Now we are just waiting to see when the payoff to that is. But this was another week where they decided to keep teasing things. And what was really cool about this match that I did like, despite the match being shorter, Bron Breaker did come out and spear Jey Uso. So whether it was Dave Meltzer or whoever the hell it was,
DHAE super chatted $5. Personally 2 hours is fine, but it's the timing. Switching to 2 hours after a plum makes it so there's so much to get through in little time.
All right, thank you for the super chat. So yeah, I think everybody's gonna have a different opinion on the $2 to 3 hour show, right? I think for me, my biggest thing that I'm looking at is like, okay, so for example, this is a good example. Jey Uso gets speared by Bron Breaker, right? We see him get speared by Bron Breaker. When we see him get speared by Bron Breaker, we have essentially gotten to the point where they are continuing the story, right? But in a 3-hour episode of Raw, they are able to do more than just that one segment. They are able to do more with backstage segments or other matches or whatever it may be. So I feel like personally, when I see this happen, I get a little confused because I'm like, okay, Bron Breakker is a heel again. He speared Jey Uso. It's not that 2 hours doesn't have good storytelling compared to 3 hours. It's just it feels rushed. It feels like the pace is off. In a weird way, and I hate comparing it to Tony Khan, but I feel like it kind of reminded me of AEW in the sense that like things are just going too quick and it's not being able to like be digested, if that makes sense. I appreciate your super chat. Thank you for the $5. Definitely appreciate it. I'm reading the chat, guys, and it's like a lot of you guys seem to agree. The content on Raw was good, but the issue with it was not necessarily the content. It was just the pacing of it. And that, I think, seems to be the common denominator here. I think a lot of us looked at the pacing and thought, okay, it's just feeling a little bit rushed. And if you're rushing sometimes, I think that could be an issue. I think that's a little problematic. I love the fact that we had Jackie Redmond, by the way, interview Bron Breakker and ask why the change in attitude. Bron Breakker just walked away. I don't know who it was, guys. I don't know if it was Dave Meltzer. I don't know what piece of shit was reporting Bron Breakker was going to be a babyface. We all know he's going to be a big babyface one day. But let's not get it twisted. Let's not forget that Bron Breakker right now wants that IC title. He's going to get it back. Also, Jey Uso is going to have to get moved to SmackDown at some point. He's going to have to reunite with Jimmy and Roman, and we got a Bloodline Civil War on our hands. Don't ever get it twisted. Don't ever forget that's in the plans. That's something that's in the works. They're going to have to get the belt off of Jey Uso. Bron Breaker, you know, he did the whole babyface shtick for 1 week. Now he's a heel. I like it. I thought this was really good. I like the fact that Bron Breaker, I don't even want to define him as a babyface, guys. I don't want to define him as a heel either. I want to see Bron Breaker be the guy that is just simply Bron Breaker. He does whatever the hell he wants, whenever he wants, however he wants, whenever he wants, whatever is up to him. Like, that's how it should be. I think there's certain characters where you shouldn't really know if they're leaning towards being a good guy or being a villain. And we don't get a lot of that in pro wrestling. And I think that would be a really fun character arc for Bron Breaker, because these guys like Bron Breaker, but it's also like you kind of like to hate on Bron Breaker. He hits Jey Uso with that spear. Kofi goes to make the save. He goes for a Trouble in Paradise. He misses it. But then you got Bron Breaker spearing Kofi. You know, Xavier Woods is not getting involved. There's a lot of good that comes from that level of storytelling here. And I thought that was a really unique situation. Moving on, we do get the good old-fashioned Donnybrook match, Sheamus versus Pete Dunne. So this is one of those things, a very, 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 very good match. A very good match. But I felt like commercials were just kicking ass here. I feel like we were watching a great match with just so many commercials. But I absolutely love this match. I thought Sheamus and Pete Dunne were excellent together. I love the fact that, like, Sheamus and Pete Dunne, to me, I don't know, man.
Rick Corrales super chatted $5. What was the point of Sexy Red? All of a sudden she was gone and then to commercials.
Great question from Rick Corrales. That is true. Sexy Red. I didn't talk about Sexy Red mainly because I don't care about Sexy Red. Yeah. So basically, Sexy Red technically kicks off WWE Raw. This is because WWE is all about the mainstream hip hop audience right now. Like if you look at it, they got Meg Thee Stallion, they got Lil Baby, they got Killer Mike, they got all these rappers, they got Metro Boomin. Sexy Red is somebody that's been working with WWE in the past with NXT. She's from St. Louis, I believe. Raw was in St. Louis. Sexy Red's going to be on NXT as well, where she's been part of NXT for a minute. The point of it is for WWE to have the social media viral content. Like, they love Sexy Red, and people love Sexy Red, and WWE is going to utilize that. That's the way WWE operates. Ski! Yeah, you got it. You got it. Listen, WWE is going to do stuff like that from time to time. They love touting the celebrities. They love touting the mainstream people that also love WWE. Shawn Michaels and Sexy Red already have, like, viral TikToks together and, like, Instagram reels and shit. So, yeah, she's, you know, maybe you listen to her music, maybe you don't. That's not really a big deal. But the point of it is because there's a crossover appeal. And people who like Sexy Red may not know WWE. They might tune into it, and then from there, we kind of see how it goes. So I think this is one of those interesting situations where WWE is just trying to capitalize off of it, and that's totally cool. I think WWE should do that. I think they should do it with tons of artists. I remember Jelly Roll. Jelly Roll came into the WWE a couple times, and I didn't know who he was. I don't listen to country music, and it was really funny. Somebody who doesn't listen to country music, never listened to Jelly Roll in my life. I put out a tweet. I'm like, who the is this guy, right? I see who he is. I think, holy shit, this is very interesting. Turns out he's actually a wrestling fan. You start listening to some music, next thing you know, just the other week, I heard a song with him and I think Post Malone or whatever. So there's always that crossover appeal. If you're somebody who's Jelly Roll and you see a clip of him on WWE and you see him doing some move or cutting a promo or whatever it may be, I think there's some cool shit that comes with that. You know what I mean? That is specifically the point as to why you do this, though. You're cross pollinating audiences, and yeah, we will see Sexy Red on NXT again. Going back to Sheamus versus Pete Dunne. Thank you, Rick, for that super chat, by the way. Darth Bane, who in the hell is Jelly Donut? No, I'm talking about Jelly Roll. Right? Isn't that his name? Jelly Roll? Jelly Roll. Yeah. Jelly Roll, dude. Not Jelly Donut. You had me tripping. You had me thinking that maybe I didn't know his name. But no, it was Jelly Roll. I looked it up. But no, like, this guy's like an actual wrestling fan. I didn't know who he was. I looked him up. He doesn't really make the music that I listen to, and then I
Sepho Malik super chatted $11.17. There are rumors that WWE might do that. The first episode of Raw on Netflix might be a level of a PLE, and I can't wait to see that, because in January we could expect the debut / of Malachi Black Panther.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Sepho Malik dropping another $10 super chat. Again, I'm going to reiterate this. It triggered the TTS. There are rumors that WWE might do that first episode of Raw on Netflix. That might be a level of a PLE, and I can't wait to see that, because in January we could expect the debut of Malachi Black and maybe Penta as well. So this is actually really interesting, because it is true. WWE is gearing up to make their Netflix debut extremely big, which, by the way, I think WWE should do that. I think it would be absolutely foolish for them to not launch on Netflix without treating it like a PLE. WWE being on Netflix, I kind of want to... Do you guys remember the first episode that Triple H had where he had full creative control of WWE Raw? One of the most unique things was like the show started off in like a crazy brawl. Like you just knew watching that first episode, it was not Vince McMahon's Raw. Like it was very, very clear, very, very, very clear that Triple H was writing the show and he was doing something absolutely different, absolutely insane. So I want that to happen. I think WWE is going to start that show with something insane. I expect every celebrity to be there that you can imagine. I expect WWE to load that card with a World Heavyweight Championship match. I expect WWE, I don't know if you guys remember how they did WWE Day 1. I could see them doing something like that for that episode of Netflix, where it's going to be a branded Raw episode. But the rumors are true. WWE is, in fact, looking at making this feel like a PLE. The problem that could arise in this specific situation, though, is that, one, you got to set the right expectations, right? So let's not talk about debuts just yet, because I could see them doing some debuts, but let's not talk about debuts. Let's look at this from a perspective of like card lineup and everything like that. If Raw on Netflix is 2 hours and 30 minutes, for example, that debut episode, and it's a very well-paced show, a lot of surprises, a lot of debuts, a lot of things, I think you're setting the bar so high that people the following week are going to kind of hope that every episode is like that. I think for WWE, one of the most important things is that whatever they plan on doing for Netflix, they set that expectation immediately. We know there's going to be graphics, new logo. The new logo is going to look very, very similar to the Raw logo that is currently on this thumbnail. So I think in general, WWE launching Raw on Netflix, it should be treated as a PLE. It should. But it's all about setting the right expectations and handling it correctly. That's the big thing. Now, in regards to WWE doing some debuts or returns, it just depends on Tony Khan if he's adding time to people's contracts. If he's adding time to people's contracts, I think that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. Obviously, you can have NXT call-ups. Obviously, you could do things like that. But I do think it is important that WWE does figure it out in a way where, they got to figure it out in a way where it's a very special episode, but also you're setting the right expectation from a pace and everything standpoint. That's really the big
Darren
thing.
Buss super chatted $9.99. I think his Dynamite being 2.5 hours last week was perfect tea for them.
I think this is a wonderful super chat. Darren Buss dropping a $9.99. He says, I think AEW Dynamite being 2.5 hours last week was perfect for them. So let's talk about this, right? Because the whole topic that we're talking about is WWE Raw being 3 hours. And I think there's a lot of people who don't understand. So I want to talk about this a little bit more in depth. Sometimes these companies just have too many things happening on TV. Okay? Sometimes they don't have enough happening on TV. Sometimes a lot of talent is being utilized, and other times not everybody is being utilized. I think the sweet spot for WWE Raw since Triple H took over was 3 hours. I do. I think Triple H did a phenomenal job of booking 3-hour episodes of Raw. completely different from the way Vince McMahon did. It was very clear that within a 3-hour time slot, Triple H was able to figure out a way to make these shows feel more important. And I'm
Dwayne
sorry.
Jackson super chatted $20. With all these talents wanting to leave, it was slowing becoming WWE of the early 2010s failure to create new stars. When MJF did that promo, his promo has proven to be more true than ever.
Okay, Dwayne, I'll get to your super chat in a second. Going back to Darren's super chat though, like when you look at 3-hour Raw, Vince McMahon could not really put that much substance in a 3-hour Raw. Triple H has found a perfect formula for it. I don't think Triple H found the perfect formula for a 2-hour SmackDown, let alone a 2-hour Raw. I think Triple H is the kind of storyteller that requires a little bit more time. So now Darren says, I think AEW being 2.5 hours last week was perfect for them. I actually agree with this. I cannot believe that I'm saying this, but I've said this a couple times in the past year. I think Tony Khan has so much going on that sometimes things don't breathe on his shows. And so I've actually said a couple times that Tony Khan going to 2.5, 3 hours would actually be pretty ideal. And I do think so. I genuinely believe it would solve a lot of problems for the company. I think Tony Khan and Triple H should have a 3-hour show. I definitely do. However, if Tony Khan were to go 2.5 hours every week, he has to follow the same formula that he followed last week. Because I thought last week's Dynamite was relatively good. Having that extra time was pretty beneficial. Granted, a lot of that extra time was due to Bryan Danielson and, of course, Okada. But because they had all that extra time, it did allow them to do a little bit more. I find that to be a good thing. I find that to be a much smoother, enjoyable watch. You know what I mean? Granted, let me say this too, because I think this part's important. Tony Khan and Triple H, I think both of them, if you look at Tony Khan and the way that he used to book in the early days, a lot of things used to be a slow burn. A lot of little details mattered. And I think Tony Khan lost that in the last 2 years. I think at the same time, though, Triple H has always been known for the little details within the storytelling, and that's why Triple H's 3-hour Raw was so enjoyable to watch. I don't know if it's solvable. Next week's Raw, we will be talking, and I'm going to tell you guys, hey, do I think it was better this week, or do I think it was worse? Is 2 hours just not good enough? I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. Thank you, Darren, for the $10 super chat. Dwayne Jackson dropped a $20 super chat. It did cut us off, but I'm going to read it again for everybody. He says, with all these talents wanting to leave, AEW is slowly becoming WWE of the early 2010s. Failure to create new stars. When MJF did that promo, his promo's proven to be more true than ever. You know, I know we're not really talking about AEW right now, but let's talk about this, okay? Let's talk about this. I think Tony Khan does fail to create new stars. I have plenty of examples that can prove that my point has been justified, right? I think Tony Khan, you know, people love statistics when it favors their biasness. But one fact that I found that was very interesting is that AEW's main roster, the median age of those who are competing on AEW television is actually higher or older than WWE currently as it stands. Which, by the way, that was not always the case with WWE. WWE didn't have a lot of young talent on television for the longest time. And, you know, when I see that AEW has a lot more older people on their TV show, I don't think that's actually a bad thing. Let's make that very clear. I don't think that's a bad thing, because I don't think wrestlers who are older these years, it's not like how it was in the 90s and 80s where guys were just abusing their bodies and doing a whole bunch of drugs and bullshit, right? Like, we're past that point. So I do think a lot of the wrestlers these days, even if they're a little bit older, I think they are much healthier athletes. I think they do a lot more to protect themselves and their health and their bodies. So I do feel like that is something to keep in mind, right? With that being said, though, I think for Tony Khan, you got to create new stars. You have to. And Tony Khan has a different philosophy than WWE. But also, it's not Tony Khan's ability to recruit, right? But let's just face it, a lot of people from AEW are NXT talent that Triple H once booked, you know? WWE is bringing a lot of college athletes. Which one is more beneficial? I mean, I think there's not enough data to really tell, but if you're looking at like some early preliminary things, I think if you look at like for example, the trajectory for people like Bron Breaker and Tiffany Stratton, you know, that's really what it comes down to. That's what it really comes down to. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see, bro. Dwayne, thank you for the super chat, brother. Appreciate you so much. Dwayne dropping a 20 bomb. Wow, what a wonderful guy. Thank you so much for that. Where is my sound bites? I think we need to let's see. Where's my soundboard? Let's give a round of applause for Dwayne Jackson. Shout out to Dwayne Jackson for the $20 super chat. Appreciate that very much, brother. Thank you. We did get another super chat as well from Darth Bane for $1.99. He says Raquel Rodriguez looked like Temu's China last night. I'm gonna cut her some slack, bro. She's been out. She's obviously had some health problems. I'm not judging Raquel from bad blood or anything like that. You know what I mean? We'll see. We'll see what happens, you know, with Raquel as she gets more acclimated to TV. But yeah. The 10-woman tag match I was not really a fan of, but that's how you knew we were on a 2-hour episode of Raw, because WWE literally had Natalya, Kaden Carter, Katana Chance, Zelina Vega, and Lyra Valkyria versus Zoe Stark, Baszler, Deville, Dawn, and Fire. I'm not too fond of these 10 people tag team matches. That was some AEW Rampage type bullshit, so we could just skip over that. Sami Zayn versus Gunther, very, very good stuff. Obviously, as expected, very, very excited about that. Gunther and Sami Zayn, they're just really, really good together. Gunther defeats Sami Zayn. It will, in fact, be Gunther versus Cody Rhodes at Crown Jewel for the Crown Jewel Championship. One thing I really, really loved about this specific match is that Gunther and Sami Zayn have done this really cool thing where Sami Zayn, he kicks out of these big moves, the big power bombs. He gets another power bomb and he kicks out at one. I like moments like that. I think they definitely make people feel very, very good. You know, like, hey, Sami Zayn has an actual chance of winning. They did do that. They did do that to me. I feel like they did a really good job of making me feel like something could actually happen where maybe Goldberg gets involved or whatever it may be. I don't know. I thought that was a possibility. Goldberg gets involved. I thought maybe Sami Zayn would actually win. I thought that was a possibility. I genuinely thought that was a possibility, which I think is a cool thing. You know what I mean? I think that was a really cool thing. So just really cool to see that. I love this match. Just again, like World Heavyweight Championship. Glad to see it. Glad to see it's on TV. Netflix, Raw on Netflix, debut episode. They should have a World Heavyweight Championship match. And that's what I want to see happen. But overall on Raw, this is where I kind of felt like things were a little bit interesting because this is where, you know, different pace, you lose an hour, that type of thing. We got a super chat from Justin Kennington for $4.99. He says, what is next for Drew, and do you think the U.S. title will get color like the IC title did? Well, the U.S. title I does have a little bit of color. But, yeah, I think in regards to Drew, I think what is next for Drew, it's very interesting. I mean, he hasn't really been winning big feuds. He hasn't really been doing big things, and that's unfortunate. I don't know. Like, it will be very interesting to see what he does in this situation. I don't know if CM Punk and Drew ever revisit their feud because it looks like CM Punk is feuding with Seth Rollins at some point. They planted that seed. Honestly, I would have Drew McIntyre go after the IC title or the World Heavyweight Championship. You know, it wouldn't be a bad idea for him to go after, to have him go after Jey Uso. There's obviously a little bit of history there. Maybe you could get some cool matches out of Drew and Bron Breaker as well. Can't go wrong. Listen, Bronson Reed's going after Seth Rollins. You got a lot of interesting options, but there's also a lot of things happening. So maybe Drew's going to get some time off. Obviously, he's been banged up. He just had a crazy Hell in a Cell match. Justin, to answer your super chat, I think, truthfully, to give you a blunt answer, I think Drew's going to take a little bit of time off. He's obviously been a workhorse this past year for WWE. He got his new contract. I can see them give him a little bit of time off and maybe have him go up against Gunther. And if they do that, that wouldn't be a bad idea. I personally don't think it would be a bad idea. That's just how I'm kind of looking at it.
Dwayne Jackson super chatted $20. Why WWE so hesitant to introduce a women's mid-card title? And WWE has get rid of the women tag titles. It's silly have tag team titles with no women's tag team division.
Alrighty, so another $20 super chat from Dwayne Jackson. Thank you, Justin, by the way, for your super chat. Dwayne Jackson says, why is WWE so hesitant to introduce a women's mid-card title? And why does WWE has get rid of the women tag titles? It's silly to have a tag team division. Okay, so you're asking why don't they get rid of the tag team division? I don't know if they'll ever get rid of the women's tag team title division. I can see them keeping that. I think they're not being hesitant to introduce women's mid-card titles. I think WWE right now, if they introduce women's mid-card titles, they have to do it the right way. I don't know when WWE plans on doing that, to be honest. I've been talking about this for 2 years now. It's something that's definitely been discussed within the WWE. From my understanding, I remember even hearing at one point that WWE at one point was planning on, they were planning on introducing them like last year WrestleMania. Or this year WrestleMania, excuse me. Listen, dude, I don't think it's a hesitancy thing. I think WWE is just very much, they got so much shit going on weekly TV, so many storylines, so many different feuds, so many different, just a million things are going on, brother. A million things are going on, and they have to do it in a way when it's ready. I personally feel like they are ready. I personally do not care to have the women's tag team title division. I don't personally care for those women's tag team titles. I mean, even now, like even on Raw, you got Lash Legend and Jakara, like they're pulling up and they're in attendance and they're paying attention to what's happening. You know, the thing is that the women's tag team division, I feel like the only reason why it's relevant is because of Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. Because if they didn't have the women's tag team titles, I really don't know what else they'd be doing on TV, which is a little bit problematic. So what I would do is get rid of the women's tag titles, introduce the women's mid-card belts. If you want to keep the women's tag team titles, keep them on NXT. It's not that big of a deal if they stay on NXT, but that's kind of the way that I'm looking at it, personally speaking. That's the way if I were WWE, I would do it. I also think it's just a matter of time until WWE does introduce them. My only thing that I don't want WWE to do, I don't want WWE to introduce mid-card titles and then they give them to people who are like not really deserving of them. So for example, like somebody that would be a really good option here would be Natalya. Natalya is a veteran. Natalya is somebody that people love. Becky Lynch could be returning soon, right? So let's talk about that. WWE internally has listed Becky Lynch on the roster. So we haven't seen Becky Lynch show up on WWE television. But I think if WWE is going to be smart here, and if they're going to introduce women's mid-card titles, you got to have a veteran carry that belt at first. Use the mid-card title as a way to climb the ladder system, right? And if you're the WWE, the way to do that is very specifically the way they did it with the IC title. Look at the Intercontinental title. Look at Gunther. He held that belt for a very long time, and then he went up and got the World Heavyweight Championship. You got to do the same thing with the mid-card titles for the women. So I think you would actually want to start off with a veteran or somebody who is like considered one of the top stars in a certain way. Because if you're WWE, for example, and you have these women mid-card belts, I don't know, for the intent of this conversation, let's just say women's IC title and women's US title, right? on Raw, if you have Becky Lynch return and there's a tournament for the Women's Intercontinental Championship, let's say Becky Lynch were to return and win it, it's a very good thing for her to hold that belt because eventually somebody has to take the belt off of her, right? And the way that it works here is Becky Lynch could go up to the main event scene again after holding that belt, and on top of that, she could drop the belt to an up-and-comer. Now, this is where WWE has to be really smart here, because if you look at the WWE roster, right, and you look at the women's roster on Raw, we're talking about Sonya Deville. Like we just talked about a 10-women tag team match. You got Lyra Valkyria, which it would be really cool for Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch to revisit. But you don't have that many talent who are showcased in the mid-card just yet in a prominent way. In fact, I would say you actually see it more on SmackDown. But you do have Io Sky. You have, obviously, the women from Damage Control. But if you're looking at it from that perspective, if you have Becky Lynch win and she drops it to an up-and-comer, that would be really, really good. Now on SmackDown, for example, yes, Michin, Chelsea Green, Piper Niven, there's women's storylines that are happening that don't involve for the world title, which would be really unique. But it really just depends. There's got to be a balance, a roster rebalancing. That's really what it comes down to. Because on SmackDown, you have Candice LeRae. Shout out to her. She's the WWE Speed Champion. You have Blair Davenport. I don't know what the hell is really happening with Blair Davenport. You know what I mean? But you have this stuff.
Dwayne Jackson super chatted $5. They could introduce mid-card title if they do a King of Ring, Queen of the Ring.
Yeah, so Dwayne continues with the super chats. Thank you, Dwayne. He says they could introduce a mid-card title if they do a King and Queen of the Ring, which is very true. Very, very true. And that would actually make it a little bit more worthy of winning the title. I think you would have to do tournaments of some kind. But I do think in order for them to successfully do these mid-card women title belts, they do have to restructure the rosters just a little bit. They have to balance them a little bit. Tegan Knox, she's not on TV, bro. She ain't doing anything. Naomi, she ain't going to win the big one just yet. But she's a veteran. She is somebody that fans absolutely
David
love.
Primero super chatted $9.99. What would happen if Tiffany cashes in during Liv versus Nia at Crown Jewel? Which title will be on the line? MHM. Maybe Becky Lynch returns at Survivor Series to help Rhea at War Games.
This is a great question from David. He says, what would happen if Tiffany cashes in during Liv versus Nia at Crown Jewel? I mean, her contract is technically for Nia. I don't know. That's a really good question. That's a very good question. Very, very good question. I don't think she's going to cash in on either one of them. So to answer that, I don't think any title would be on the line, personally. Becky Lynch returning to Survivor Series to help Rhea at War Games. That would make a lot of sense. But it also makes a lot of sense if Becky Lynch were to help, if she were to return to Survivor Series and help Rhea Ripley at War Games, then you probably take her out of the equation for the mid-card championship, right? That's what it comes down to. Becky Lynch is returning to the WWE, guys. She ain't going to AEW. For anybody who thinks she's going to AEW, that's definitely not happening. That is definitely not happening at all whatsoever. But just keep that in mind. Like, that's one of the beauty, that's kind of the beauty of this, right? Is like, we know she's going to be back. When is she going to be back? Becky helping Rhea Ripley is very interesting considering that they have history as well. But why did WWE put her internally on the roster? Guys, Becky Lynch, Seth Rollins, they're WWE lifers at this point. I think wrestling fans are just obsessed with the idea of people leaving, but you got to be somewhat realistic. And also, one thing that you have to keep in mind here, and this is what I love about David's Super Chat, Becky Lynch returning as Survivor Series to help Rhea adds more to the top feud, but if they're introducing mid-card titles, would it make more sense for Becky to be there? Does Rhea Ripley really need Becky Lynch's help? I don't know. WWE will have to figure that out for sure. Absolutely, without a doubt, they will have to figure that out. I think Becky Lynch is returning to WWE. I think WWE has always known that she was returning. She is listed internally on the roster. And I do believe to a certain extent that Becky Lynch is going to be very, very long-term with WWE. I think she's going to be an ambassador. I think she will be a part-timer. Obviously, she puts motherhood first, but her husband works there. It just doesn't make any sense for her to be in AEW. That's what it comes down to, my friends. It just doesn't make sense for her to be in AEW. And to be honest with you, it wouldn't help AEW. So let's not get it twisted. That's what it is. That's what it is. You guys got to remember this. Remember, people said that Mercedes would go to AEW and absolutely be a game changer. That didn't happen. Becky Lynch would not be walking into AEW with the name Becky Lynch. She would be walking in with Rebecca Knox or some other bullshit-ass name. She wouldn't have her WWE name. The WWE name is the value. That's why WWE is so big on these trademarks. So I see a lot of people in chat, they're like, oh, it would have been cool to see her in AEW. No, it wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have helped AEW. It would have cost AEW money. But the reality is people know Becky Lynch because she's Becky Lynch. And it goes back to what I was saying about the mid-card titles. The mid-card titles are designed to really help get somebody to the next level, right? That's what they should be there for, to help bring somebody to the next level. Maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but that's how I feel these mid-card titles have always been. When they're booked very well, it's because they elevated talent. So imagine if Becky Lynch were to come in, and win the mid-card title, put over somebody that's up and coming, and then go back to the top of the scene. That's good. That's fine. If somebody beats Becky Lynch, it adds a lot of value and benefit to them. We just got another super chat for $2. K West says, where has Charlotte been? Charlotte, I have no idea where Charlotte has been. Nobody really knows. She was injured. Then it looks like she's coming back, and it looks like rehabilitation was good. Then there's been some rumors that Charlotte is cleared and ready to go. Charlotte she's massive star. Massive star. But you know what? If WWE introduces a U.S. title on SmackDown for the women, give it to Charlotte. And then have Charlotte lose to somebody up and coming. Chelsea Green, Meechin, Piper Niven, right? That's how it should be. I'm excited to see what happens. But it's going to be a really crazy time because WWE, when people get injured or when people take time off, WWE keeps moving on. And some people just some people just they fall behind. Thank you guys for those super chats, by the way. I want to,
Dwayne Jackson super chatted $5. When do you think Christian cashes in his championship opportunity? At Wrestle Dream?
Yeah, this is a great question, Dwayne. I think Christian cashes in at Wrestle Dream, and I think he fails his cash in. I would at least hope so. I think it would make a lot of sense for him to fail his cash in, though. I do. I think it makes a lot of sense for him to fail his cash in. But I don't really know how AEW plans on doing that shit either, because it's not like they be teasing it all the time either. It's not like Tiffany Stratton every week. It's like a big focal point. So I don't know. It's a good question. It's a very, very good question, though. Very, very good question. If it doesn't happen at Wrestle Dream, I think that would be a mistake. You don't want it to become an afterthought. Thank you for the super chat, brother. Guys, one final topic that I want to talk about. An AEW star is currently on her way out of AEW. I thought this was very interesting. We all know Maria Kanellis. She has been in AEW, and it appears that she is departing from AEW, and she does plan to speak out about her time in the promotion should she not re-sign with the company. It doesn't sound like she's re-signing, though. She says, for those asking, I will be accepting interviews about my time and my treatment in AEW after October 31st. I will be able to start taking bookings 6 weeks after my surgery, so starting the second week in December. And then she put her booking email in there. We know that she is she going back to school? I think that was the thing that was being said, was that she was going to go back and finish school. Guys, Maria Kanellis leaving AEW is interesting because Maria Kanellis, I don't know, man. I don't know. Obviously, she has her history with ROH, and then, of course, Mike Bennett is in the company. I feel like she's been relatively positive about AEW and her experience in AEW. is this more of a personal choice? Is there an opportunity for her to work in AEW just specifically as a backstage person? I know at one point there was talks publicly that Maria was like giving input on the women's division. I don't know how accurate that is. But if I'm Tony Khan, the way that I kind of look at this, man, is like, is it really a big loss for AEW or ROH? No, not really. I really don't think so. You know what I mean? I don't really think that's the case. But what we're not even factoring in is this maybe AEW saying, hey, we aren't going to keep you. Tony Khan is getting this massive new TV deal. The money's going to be coming in. The money is going to be absurdly high. And I think if I'm Tony Khan, I think really, you don't really need to cut the talent. But I do think Tony Khan is going to not re-sign talent. I don't think Tony Khan is going to release 200 people like Vince McMahon did. But I do see Tony Khan not re-signing everybody. And truth be told, you got to look at the value that these people are bringing into the program, right? Like that is one thing you guys got to factor in. Dwayne Jackson in the chat says, did she burn bridges? That we should be asking. I would find that very odd, to be honest, because I feel like Maria has always been very positive about AEW. So when you look at her tweet, obviously, listen, she says, I will be accepting interviews about my time and treatment in AEW. Like, that's kind of vague. Was your treatment bad? Was there something bad that happened in AEW? You know? I don't know. But I do think one of the biggest things about AEW is that they've signed a lot of people and didn't really utilize them in a big way. Mike Bennett, Matt Taven, I was shocked. Like, they did this Undisputed Kingdom thing, and it just, like, it really didn't work. And it still doesn't work. And then Maria Kanellis has been kind of put away onto the side doing things in ROH occasionally. It's not like she's a prominent figure on AEW television. So, really, I think what it comes down to is AEW has too many people signed. Some people don't want to be there, which we know. But also, Tony Khan might not want some of the people that he signed. And it is a business. And, you know, for Maria Kanellis, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I remember her dropping a tweet about AEW doing like a tuition thing. You know, whatever it may be. Like a tuition program or something. I don't know. I have a very strong feeling, actually very, very little to do with anything bad. I don't think anything negative happened here. But I am very curious as to what she means when she says that she's going to speak about her time and treatment in AEW. But there is a lot of talent in AEW, guys. This is not going to be the last time somebody leaves AEW. Just like we know it won't be the last time that somebody leaves WWE. But I thought for sure, I mean, and obviously she's got some stuff going on health-wise too, which you guys know. You guys know that, like, I put it out there all the time. Health is wealth. But yeah, it's Steve Paulus says in the chat, you are correct. She said AEW is helping her with her tuition to go to school at University of Illinois, which is great. Fantastic. Her contract is up on October 31st. Technically speaking, they can do a different kind of contract. Maybe instead of a talent contract, maybe a backstage role. You know, that's always a possibility as well. Continuing on with talent leaving, just a quick update. Dwayne Jackson asks about Miro. As of this time, AEW has not granted the release for Miro. So, you know, it's interesting, man. There's been talks of maybe Miro and AEW just like Tony Khan is just not going to bring him in, not use him, and just let the contract go. Just keep it going. Not freezing the contract, but basically saying, listen, we can't come to an agreement on creative. How true is that? I don't know. But I do think that's a reasonable thing to ask. I think it's a reasonable thing to ask. I think for Tony Khan, you have to be realistic. Not everybody's going to want to be there. Some people will want to be there. If Miro doesn't want to be there, let him go. So it's weird, man. The Miro situation's a little bit more weird because I think everybody thought, okay, he requested his release, he's going to be gone from the company. And then it's like, next thing you hear is that, hey, there's just creative differences. Tony Khan is not granted the release. And I guess, I mean, granted, he is a business person, and for him, maybe he does want to utilize certain people. But you guys got to remember this. This is probably the most important thing that you need to remember out of this specific segment here. There are people who want to be there. Those are the people that Tony Khan should be looking out after. And guess what? The same thing is for Nick Khan and Triple H. You have people that want to be there. Take care of those people. Treat them good. Take care of them. Push them. Put them on TV. The people that don't want to be there, why spend your money on them? Look at how much money those people generate for you and see if it's worth it. Whatever the situation is with Maria Kanellis, I hope it all works out well. We're gonna get some tea. If it's drama, we're gonna find out. If it's just personal truth, like personal, experiences, like she's kind of done with it. You got to remember she's a mother. She's got some health stuff going on. If that's all it is too, that's fine. We'll see what happens. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's episode of The Ango Show Live. I appreciate you all being here. A monstrous day on the Super Chats. Let's give a huge thank you to everybody who dropped a Super Chat. And, of course, Dwayne dropped over 50 bones today. Dwayne, appreciate you, brother. You get the air horn. Not the sad horn. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Ango Show. I appreciate you all being here. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. NXT, Randy Orton, Javon Evans. So much good stuff is happening. And we'll be here to talk about it tomorrow. Don't forget, I'll have the highlights posted on More Ango for those who are watching live or on demand. We will be going back to Spotify and Apple starting next week as well. Appreciate y'all. Peace.